Okay, cultural attitudes towards etiology. So previously, we looked at treatment, um, or cultural attitudes towards medication, and now we're going to look at the differences in attitudes towards etiologies. Okay, and so I like using this phrase here. What's one role of culture in the approaches to the treatment of psychological disorders? This is good just because this is the language that they use in the guide. So this is what we're trying to answer, and just translate the language. Right. What is one role of cultural? I mean, I hate that phrase. One, the role of. I mean, it doesn't really make much sense. How can culture affect treatment of disorders? That's what they're asking. Maybe how can culture influence treatment of disorders? That's what we're trying to look at. Okay, little recap, little review. I've got a bunch of buzzers. I posted the link. You can get them on Amazon in the Facebook group. I posted the link a while ago, and they just make different barnyard noises, or you can just make kids make their own noises. But they're going to see the name of the researcher, and they have to say the results. A little exam tip: when students are revising, I would make sure that they can. This is why I like to use the name of the researcher, because it's just easy to activate the schema and it's good for recap like this. And also I'd make sure that they can, the first thing they should make sure they know is the results. Methods, procedures, aims, that stuff secondary. The results is the most important thing. And if you think about it, because if you can figure out the results, well then you can deduce the aim based on the results. And you can probably, if you know the results in enough detail, you can probably deduce the methodology, because they kind of go hand in hand. So, and if you talk about the methods but you don't know the results, the study's useless. But if you can write about a study by just knowing the results. So when revising studies, the results is the most important thing that they need to make sure they know. And a good example is HM. The students love to talk about his life story and the autobiographical details, but often they sort of gloss over the results and the actual stuff that they found out. So, a little exam tip there. Yeah, right, I'm ahead of myself. Okay. Alright, so I'd say what are the results of the following studies, and then hands-on buzzers, and do students know them? And so you just go through all of these. Alright, you might want to review yourself if this is the first time teaching this unit. It took me 2 or 3 goes before I became familiar with a lot of these new names here as well. Okay, now here's a few, I think about a 5-minute video. A guy talking about the approaches to mental health and looking at mental health challenges for the black community and why mental health, why it might be different for blacks and other races in the United States. And then if you like, if it seems to strike a chord, you can have a discussion about this afterwards. Now there's an activity. I tried to make something engaging. There are cards based on the study for today, Huang et al. Study. This is in the book. And you'll share it, so they're given a character's attitude, like this is a result from the study. And then as a group, they have to discuss how they would affect the treatment, okay, both from the clinician's point of view and the patient's point of view. So I'd go over to the activities file, have a look at that, and just familiarize yourself with that activity. If anything doesn't make sense, just post it to the group, but hopefully it's pretty clear. And then they can make notes in the workbook beneath the notes of the study. And then we do a little bit of chalk and talk after. So they get activity, they get familiar with it, and then we can explain it here. And there's just some differences in different races in America as to what their attitudes towards the etiologies, and some attitudes towards treatment as well. Yep, and so we're just reviewing here as well the idea of cultural competency. So making sure that that you're aware of the cultural background of your participant and how that might affect the treatment process. Okay, turn off Facebook here, and yeah, this is our key question for today. So hopefully they can answer that. You might want to, if you've got time or as homework, watch the trailer for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is a classic film. If I have some time in the course, which sometimes I do, I like to watch this just to give the kids a break, and I just think it's a great film. They can watch that and then compare it with It's Kind of a Funny Story, because It's Kind of a Funny Story is it's set in a psychiatric ward in a hospital, and this is just a few years old. Zach Galifianakis is one of the actors, and maybe they can compare what do they see in the differences between the psychiatric hospitals 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and now. It might just be a different type of activity. And then maybe bring students back to this review document that you can find in the files, and they might be able to add they should be able to add their notes here, and this is good. Every now and then, if you're really exam focused, you can get them looking at this because it gets them familiar with the types of language that they're going to see in their questions, and also gets them familiar with the uncertainty. I mean, I don't know what reason, where they haven't given us any guidance for a lot of these about what we have to do and what we have to teach. We're just giving us topics. So students having to come up with themselves. What do they think the core question is? They should be able to answer from that. Can be a good review process in and of itself. And that's culture and treatment. And then the next topic is one that I personally don't teach, but I'll go through it. What I've planned that might help if you do teach it is diagnosing disorders.